to the All in Mountain Brook podcast, where we strive to provide families in our community with factual information in the areas of personal safety, mental health, and overall wellness. Our hope is that All In will be seen as a trusted and positive source as we navigate the ever-changing world around us and promote a collectively successful future. All In Mountain Brook provides free in-person training sessions and conferences, podcasts and webinars, online resources, and more. We hope you will consider supporting All In by making a tax-deductible donation at allinmountainbrook.org/donate. And now, whether you are on a walk, driving carpool, or have a few minutes of downtime, we hope you enjoy today's All In Mountain Brook podcast.
Thanks for being here. My name is Cameron Cole. I work at St. Peter's Anglican Church. I'm the director of adult and Nextgen Discipleship there, and then I'm bivocational. I work a day and a half a week at a nonprofit called Rooted that promotes gospel-centered. Hey, friend, gospel-centered Nextgen ministry. And I have a second grader and a fifth grader at Brookwood Forest. I have a seventh grader here at the junior high. So I'm, we're in the thick of it. And so the title of this is, I can't remember what I submitted, but I know it has something to do with well-adjusted mediocre kids. It's either the freedom of raising mediocre, well-adjusted kids or the value of raising mediocre, well-adjusted kids. And It kind of came out of this mantra I kind of had within our family, and I was like, we're here to raise kids who are faithful and well-adjusted and utterly mediocre. And I'll kind of explain what that is, but what I mean by all of this. But I would, honestly, this is something I've kind of observed, both with kids and with parents, and is this kind of culture of greatness. This compulsion that parents feel that their primary job is to raise kids who are superstars, whatever lane that may be. They are superstar students, they're superstar athletes, they're superstar at dance or cheer, whatever it may be. And that what tends to dominate family life for most families is parents kind of functioning like the personal agent for their kid whose primary job is to form a kid who is going to have the most spectacular resume that the world has ever seen, who's going to get into Princeton or Harvard, and who's going to be an investment banker on Wall Street after finishing college in 3 years. If they don't go pro in whatever sport it is. And so I say that in jest, but that does seem to be a pretty prevalent pressure and lived experience for most parents, and then downstream for the kids as well. And so there's it's in the rooted part of my ministry life. A large part of my interaction is with the Asian American Immigrant Church. I'd say my best pastor friends are typically Asian American, working in immigrant churches that are bi or trilingual, and so that's something that I've learned from them that I've observed happens to be true. It's predominantly true in suburban areas, but particularly southern suburban areas. Is what you would call a shame-honor dynamic. And shame-honor dynamic, there are two facets. One aspect of shame-honor culture is that you feel like you live your life in front of the audience. You live your life in front of the group as if people are kind of observing and scrutinizing what you do. So there's a pressure in that. But the second aspect of shame-honor culture is there's one or two options. The one option is to be great, and the other option is total failure. There's no in between. There's no space for being average, just being mediocre or regular. And so this is my Asian American friends. They're the ones who said this. So what I'm about to say, do not hear as like I'm being a bigot. But they joke about the Asian American the Asian American grades. A stands for acceptable. B is better improved next time. C is can't come home. No, can't eat dinner. D is don't come home. And F is find another family. Yeah, and so they have said that to me, kind of joking, but it does kind of capture this kind of notion that we all probably feel in our lives as parents or in our communities, that you're either a rock star or it's failure. Like, there's only value in being a superstar. There's not a whole lot of space for just being a regular person. As I like to say, as average as unsalted grits. So with that being said, something I found in my experience, I think that a lot of teachers and counselors would probably validate what a lot of youth pastors and children's pastors would say, is a lot of times you kind of anecdotally observe trends, and then after about 3, 4, 5 years of observing the trends, there's something, the scientific research comes in that validates what you're observing. So for example, like counselors, teachers, youth pastors, we were all observing this kind of mental health, this spike in anxiety from kids on phones and screens, as we suspected it was about. It seemed like, you ask a kid how they're doing and they're anxious and they're stressed, like that was what was coming out of their mouth. And then, around 2021, 2022, all the research comes and validates that. Well, a similar kind of thing would be true of observing the lives of parents. You see parents, and it's like they, most of them have a job and they're working, and then they finish work and they have to get their kids collectively to like 2 or 3 or 4 practices a night. And then, we've got to dress up every day, right? We've got to have a dress up day for everything. So we've got to run down to the Dollar General, the Dollar Tree to get a costume because it's yellow day and we've had to find a yellow shirt at Walmart. And really, it's just like going and going and going. And then, on weekends, it's like so many activities, whether it's competition cheer or competition dance or baseball or basketball, so on and so forth, that parents don't really have an off day. They don't really get any time off. Like, they're between their job and the parenting, it's every waking hour is performative, and there's no time for restoration. Well, last year, in September 2020, no, not last year, golly, here we are, 2026. In September 2024, the Surgeon General actually issued a warning. Like, a warning is tantamount to, what happens when you smoke cigarettes, or what happens when you drink alcohol when you have a baby. So this is severe. But there's a Surgeon General's warning that said that parenting was a threat to the mental health of adults. A person who has children is twice as likely to struggle with mental illness, between depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation, more so than people who do not have kids. And so it just kind of captured what anecdotally you could observe, or what experientially you may have felt, that this pressure to be so great, and that we have to always be, we can't just be a good student. We have to be great and have the tutor and do all the extra things. We can't just be like do sports to do sports. Like, we have to be a star. It's massively taking a toll on the mental health of parents. And this is not just confined to upper class suburban parents. This is going all the way down to lower middle class families as well. This used to be kind of a complex of affluent suburban families. Now it is a pretty generalized thing, outside of impoverished situations. And so here's kind of how we got here from an historic standpoint. In the 1980s, there was kind of a shift in, there was kind of this realization that, wow, our kids may not earn as much money as we did. There was the first generation where parents kind of did not expect that their kids would outperform them socioeconomically. And so what happened is, this was kind of the dawn of the college admissions arms race and intensive parenting. You've heard of helicopter parenting. Helicopter parenting is really has to do more with being hyper vigilant over the physical safety of a child. That is also a complex of the 80s and 90s. That was a product of the kidnapping mythology. There was this thought that there were lots of kids being kidnapped. It was never the case. It was just a kind of a mythology driven by mass media. Intensive parenting, though, was this thought of, my primary job is to make my child as competitive and successful as possible in the market economy. And so intensive parenting, as parents, they kind of shifted their priority away from, and this is particularly true in the 90s, they shifted their priority away from nurture, support, character development, security for the child. And now the greater priority was child competence, raising a kid who's going to be successful down the road. And so that was in the 90s. And what you can kind of observe, there's quantitative research to validate this, but you can also observe that it's just gotten so much more intense. That everyone keeps on kind of raising the stakes, such that it is kind of almost like an arms race, with the primary, whether it's spoken or not spoken, there's this kind of implicit thought of, I'm building my child's resume. I'm forming my child into someone who's going to be a rock star, and even more concretely, he's going to get into a great college. Okay, and so you can see this, in a number of areas, but you can particularly see this in like extracurricular activities, sports, competition, cheer, dance, those kind of things. And let me say, I don't think any of these things are inherently bad. It all depends on the child, and it all depends on what the intent is with the child. So please don't hear me as just hating on, yeah, come on in, you're fine. No, you're totally fine. Don't hear me as just like unequivocally, dogmatically just hating on, ACT prep classes or travel baseball or competition cheer or whatever it may be. I'm speaking descriptively here of what of kind of what are the trends within our culture. And so first thing you can observe in sports is just the amount of money that families spend on a lot of these extracurriculars. So a family that does travel soccer, average expense per year in 2023 was $2,500 to $5,000. Baseball, $3,700. Some of y'all are like, please, dog, that was last weekend. Beauty pageants, $5,000 to $10,000. And then competition dance, $5,000 to $10,000 a year per child. But the most expensive was volleyball. Average cost for travel volleyball is $8,000 to $10,000 a year. That's a lot of money. All right. So you can just see one of it. You can see it reflecting the cost. Travel sports is a $39 billion industry in 2023. That's 3 years ago. They think it'll double by 2030. And then the other thing you can also observe is the high incidence of injuries in sports for kids from overuse. The National Athletic Trainers Association said up to half of injuries, sports injuries for kids, are just from overuse. It's not from, someone stepped on your ankle or you roll an ankle or whatever. It's you're just playing and practicing too much. And so you can see that in sports. And then on the school side, oh man, just the intensity of tutors. And by the way, we've definitely invested in tutors for one of our kids. It was a good thing for them. So again, I'm not just hating on this kind of stuff. I'm more talking about how this stuff is taken to extremes, and there's just such a pressure behind it. ACT prep classes. My buddy Ginger Mayfield, who's like the guru on college admissions, she's like, let me just tell you, Big C, those college admissions, those ACT prep classes can really save a family a lot of money. So it could be good. It could be good, but there is an expectation that everybody has to do it. And so, and then also there's this expectation, what's up, friends? There's this expectation of just like your class load. We have to take, my child is bright, so we're going to take 5 or 6 AP classes. That's just probably pretty hard to have good life patterns if you're taking a load like that. And so it's just really intense. Does anyone feeling that, or is this totally foreign? Anybody feeling getting some amens? There we go. Okay, so here's the first thing I'm going to say here is, first off, what is this all for? And I hate to break this to you, but getting into college today is a lot more difficult than it was back in the day. if you like have observed kids in our community who are the finest kids, who have the best grades, who have all the positions, and the kind of schools that when I was growing up, it would be a slam dunk for them to get into. They don't get it at all. My little cousin, who's amazing, she had a 4.5. She was number 3 in the class. She had a 35 on the ACT. Her dad was a giving alum at Vanderbilt. She got straight up rejected, not even waitlisted, straight up rejected at Vanderbilt. Harvard gets 54,000 applications for 1,900 spots. 25% of those applications have a 36 on the ACT. So yeah, I mean, a lot of kind of the intensity that is directed towards college admissions, it's really kind of like you may as well like go to the Georgia line and buy a bunch of lottery tickets. We're talking about those kind of probabilities. It's not impossible, but I'm just saying like it's really, really improbable a lot of times for kids to get into these kind of schools that everyone is centering their life around getting into. So what I'm throwing out there is this, second thing is the cost. Cost for 1 year, total cost at Vanderbilt for 1 year is how much this year? $97,000 to $98,000. You can get some financial aid if you make less than $150,000, the total household income. You can get some financial aid, but above that, there's no financial aid. Princeton is $90,000. That's a deal. It's a discount. So all that being said, too, another thing is kind of like we're all shooting for this thing that is financially, unattainable and statistically improbable. So, hey, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying, like, I don't buy lottery tickets for a reason. Second thing I would say is, like, what really matters? Like, as a parent, like, what do you really care about with your kid? And it's really easy to lose sight of that. And I want to tell you, I feel all of these pressures. I have fantasies of my children being rock stars. You know, I really do. I'd probably talk way too much about one of my kids, how she's going to go work at Deloitte or Bain or McKinsey, and that's just going to be where she starts, right? And one of my old interns is like had a career at Deloitte, and that's going to be her end, and we're ready to go. I'm just telling you, I feel all these things, but then at the end of the day, like really project like where you want to see your child when they're 25, 30, 35, 40, and you probably care a whole lot more about their how they are as a parent, how they are as a spouse, how they are as a friend, how they are as a citizen, and how they are as an employee, particularly from like a high character standpoint. You probably care a whole lot more about how they're functioning morally and ethically than you do care about their net worth. That's actually at the end of the day what you really care about. And so the factors that nurture those things have to do with cultivating the child's character, their emotional intelligence, their social intelligence. Those are the kind of things that really matter. So I'll just tell you, this is my strategy behind the Cole family raising mediocre, well-adjusted, faithful kids. Is like we're not. I throw this out as a possibility of like not chasing greatness in terms of like school and sports. At least not when they're little, and maybe not when they're in middle school. Instead, like, look, I'll just tell you, if your kid is a really talented athlete, or they're really, really smart, and they just basically apply themselves in a way that's just basically faithful, they're probably going to get to those places just off their natural ability. And if they're not a naturally incredibly gifted athlete, or they're not naturally really, really, really intelligent, it doesn't matter how much you put in. Like, I was never going to win the 100-meter dash in the Olympics. It just wasn't going to happen. I was never going to play in the NBA. There are just certain ceilings in terms of, like, you know, what we're endowed with from an ability standpoint. So, that being said, what does research say are the factors that promote children who are well-adjusted, who have good mental health, who tend to have good character, who tend to be content, who tend to be good relationally. Here are the factors. First, what are the practices that promote that? The first is family meals. Basically, this has been true for a long time. The research continues to validate this. There's a direct correlation between the number of meals that a family eats together and a child's mental health, likelihood to do drugs, drink, be promiscuous, things like that. I'll get into more detail on this. Second is religious services. No matter what your faith tradition is, direct correlation between regular attendance of religious services and kids being well-adjusted. Third is minimizing screen time, reducing the amount of screen time that a child has. Fourth is maximizing unstructured outside play. And fifth is prioritizing conversations with a child that are driven about processing emotionally, talking about wisdom and relationships, so on and so forth. So basically the strategy, if you were just going by the research in terms of what promotes well-adjusted kids, maximizing family meals, maximizing religious attendance, minimizing screen access, maximizing unstructured outside play, prioritizing time and space for parents to have emotionally intelligent conversations. So let's talk about family meals for a second. Family meals, provided that it's not, that it's like civil. People aren't screaming at each other. The research does say that if it's like a hostile environment, it tends to undermine the benefits. But frequent family meals, lowered rates of depression, anxiety, and substance abuse actually correlate to better academic performance, and higher emotional intelligence. Makes sense. We've all heard it a million times. Church attendance or religious service attendance. The benefits there's lower rates of substance abuse and risky behavior, greater sense of meaning, purpose, and moral framework, stronger intergenerational social support, greater sense of purpose in their life. This is when they're in a church setting that is not fear, shame, and guilt-based, but where there's a positive and supportive environment. Access to minimize kids' access to screens. I think we've all heard that a lot, and that's pretty clear, but do remember the average American teenager is on social media on average 5 hours a day and on a screen 8 to 9 hours a day. And it is so detrimental to their emotional and social development. And then finally, maximizing outside creative play. Unbelievable what the research says in terms of developing executive functioning, the ability to self-regulate, the ability to solve problems. Outside unstructured play is incredibly beneficial for kids. And then finally, just having conversations with your child about character, about emotional processing, and about wisdom and relationships. Okay, so what I'm saying here, this is my hope, to set you free here, is I think something that's worth considering is evaluating how much of our time is dedicated to raising a superstar. And in that, in light of that, these kind of things that actually do lead to a well-adjusted kid, like eating meals together, playing outside. I know that's more of an elementary school kind of thing. Probably not sending your 9th grader out like, hey, go build a fort. Maybe, I don't know. That'd be great. But anyhow, religious attendance, meals together, minimizing screen time, maximizing just play, having space for conversations. Like, how much does the pursuit of these endeavors torpedo those other things that actually lead to well-adjusted kids? And so this is what I would say. What I would say is that I think you as a parent can feel a ton of freedom to basically trust the school system that your child's going to be educated. I think this is a fantastic school system. I used to be a teacher, have a master's in education. I've been in a lot of different schools, had to do research. And I'll just tell you, I've never seen a school like this. It's a school system like this. I have kids on all ends of the performance spectrum. One with dyslexia, one in the middle of the pack, and one who's really bright. That's the one who's going to work for Deloitte. Just kidding. But I feel like the school does an incredible job of attending to them. So I think that in terms of those kind of things, I think especially as your kids get into middle school and high school, I think you'd probably trust the coaches to develop your kid in terms of sports. I feel like the sports schedules in junior high and high school tend to be more family friendly than in elementary school. But that being said, I think that we as parents can really just dedicate our focus to enjoying our kids, spending time with our kids, talking to our kids about helping them process their emotions, helping them process through relational situations, give them wisdom in that way, and really honestly doing the kind of things that you as a parent actually enjoy. It's actually life-giving and nurturing for you as a parent. So, this is a delicate topic, but I just kind of, my hope is that the kind of things that you actually want to do as a parent that are life-giving for you and that you feel really do yield connection with your child, the kind of things you probably aspired to when you first had a baby, like that, those things are actually the things that are long-term going to form the kind of kid that you want to see when they're 20, 30, 40, 50. And you don't need to feel this pressure like you're failing your kid if you don't try to avail them of every single opportunity. You're saying no to a lot of that. Working in healthy life patterns actually probably does benefit your kid and the things that really matter. So, and let me just say that some of the things that I'm so grateful that my daughter's running cross country. I want all my kids to run cross country. It is so fantastic. It's hard. It develops character. So I think viewing all these different things through the lens of like what actually is developing the character, the resiliency, those kind of things within my kid, that's the lens to think about. Anybody have any questions?
Cameron, can you give more examples for the fifth one about talking about emotions and things of that nature? Like, how do you do that in practice?
Yeah, great question. So, actually, let me pull something out of my backpack here. Here's a little example. Come on, gotta find it. These are little conversation cards. Where are they? Well, here they are. All right. So I would say these little conversation cards. Look at you. You're winning. Why don't you teach the class? It was a gift. Yeah. Yeah, so, I think things like conversation cards at the dinner table, I think, asking, kind of being like a sideline therapist with your child. Like, how much time do we have? 2 minutes. I'm going to teach y'all this one. This is a good one. External, internal, eternal. So basically, in terms of like the framework I would think about having conversations with teenagers is external, like how was your day? How is this? You're just asking about the details, right? What y'all do in practice? Like how was your Latin test? Da 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 da. That's the external. That's just the who, what, where, when. Internal is as you're listening to what they say, you're like, okay, so practice is really hard. Like how'd you feel about that? Or you did bad on you did bad on that test. How are you feeling about? Are you feeling disappointed or whatever? I think the internal kind of like below what the circumstances are, asking what the emotional substance is below the details of their life. And boys don't have super high emotional vocabularies, so you kind of got to be patient with that and not expect them to just blurt it all out. But it's worth trying. Second thing I would say, particularly with the relational dynamics. Especially as they enter into adolescence and relationships get a little more messy, I think asking them, like, walking through these social situations and just like, what were you thinking? What did you say? Have you thought about their side? Like trying to kind of cultivate empathy. I think there's a guy named Paul David Tripp. He's a really good writer. He's a Christian writer. But he talks about how a lot of times in parenting, we want to reserve 5 minutes for what's really a 45-minute conversation. And so I think that, how about that? I just think that we probably need to have more space for conversations. I think that, especially as your kids get into middle school, like a lot of the time dedication is you just have to leave more margin because things are just gonna pop up, and to kind of get the kind of emotional and social intelligence that we really want to see in our kids, there has to be margin to have longer conversations and let them dive deeper. Was that like the symbol that we're supposed to? Yeah. It's 6 o'clock. All right. I hope this was helpful. Thank you. Yeah, y'all have a good night. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. We would like to express our appreciation to our outstanding speakers and All In board members who have shared their time and wisdom. William Galloway and Mountain Brook Schools for providing the podcast equipment and expertise, and to Chris Sima with Open Water Productions for producing our podcast series.